Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we have a super fun one. We finally got the Gen 3 electric Grom put together. Super excited about it. It just looks factory. I could literally be parked outside your local dealer, and if you didn't know what you were looking at, you would think I just rolled this thing out of the showroom. So today's video, we're gonna cover all about how we got to this point, basically installing the bracket, wiring, everything from start to finish, and let's get into it. Straight out of the box, all the parts come nice and powder coated, beautiful welds, and I'm so happy with how these C cutouts came out. Nice and defined cuts, and it's just beautiful. I went ahead and threw everything up on the lift by the bike and included a 2.5-inch rear lowering link from Chimera. I wanted it to hopefully give me a little bit more squat so that when I took off it wasn't super spongy. Installing the main bracket is really simple. You basically have 3 main motor mounting bolts that you use, and they're 8-inch long bolts that go right through here, and then the controller fits right on top. I went ahead and used a one-piece controller bracket on this, a little different from how I did the SFs and the OGs, but it's mainly because the front mounting point on these, there's not 2 identical symmetrical sides, so I can only use 3 of those mounting points, so that allows me to use this extra one to hang stuff on, and then these holes are for the gas tank. So I can't use those the way I did on the SFs and the OGs and using a 2-piece bracket. With the main bracketry now up, I can secure the mounting plates to the motor and then put that in one side of the bike so that it overhangs on the other side with the sprocket wheel. You can secure that to the actual battery bracket with 2 bolts, and then from there, step back and just appreciate how it's coming together because it's so nice. And then just installing the chain, probably my least favorite part next to bleeding the brakes, but it needs to be done. So we went ahead and used a 428 chain on this bike, a little bit more beefier than the 420, but still lightweight. And it was at this point where I think I realized that I love the way this bike looks. Just the OEM look of that rear hugger with the chain. It just is so clean, and it has that aspect of OEM Plus that I was really after in starting this build initially. Doing the wiring was pretty straightforward after doing the past bikes, but it's still kind of a daunting task. It just takes a lot of time, and while it's not hard, you just need to be careful that you're doing things the right way. Everything got tucked up really nicely, shrouded up for the most part, and just kind of zip tied away, and everything's nice and clean of an install using factory connectors and easy push pins, so that way it makes it easy for everyone to install the kit should they want one. Throwing the headlight back on, it really stood out to me that these bars are not lowered. I think this is the first bike I've ever built with OEM bars, which doesn't bother me, but it's just different. And then I ran the charging cable up the side here, that's the red and black cable, to under the seat, so it makes it easily accessible for whenever you need to charge the bike. You just kind of pop the seat off and you're good to go. Putting the fuel tank back on and the upper plastics, I then realized how many nuts and bolts I still have left over, and seemingly always have left over whenever I do a build. You know, part of the build process, I guess. We'll just roll with it, but it's coming along nicely and it looks great. All the wires from the phase wires on the motor themselves are nice and tucked in there, and it just fits really nicely. I was a little uneasy about this initially. Then it's as easy as throwing all the plastics on the sides, and voila, we are back to stock form. So if you look at the side of this, obviously the battery is lower than what the normal 125cc motor would sit at, but I still have plenty of ground clearance on there, so really happy with how that came out. The rear tail came together nicely as well. We do have the plate kind of tucked a little bit, but I didn't want to hit it since I am still on the stock suspension there. And just makes it to where, again, OEM Plus, we were going for that. I think we nailed it and couldn't be happier with how this really came out. So we'll roll this thing out to the sunlight and get a better look of it and just be enamored by what it actually came out like. In the sunlight, it looks so good. The blue, the black, the mesh, it just looks awesome. I'm so happy with how this came out, and now it's going to be all about getting it out on the road. Next up, next week, we will run a range test in Eco, or essentially running a city riding test to give a good bearing on how this battery holds up with just normal riding. I weigh 230, so it gives a real world application. So I'm excited for you guys to stick along and see the rest, and thank you for watching it thus far. We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye!